Hello everybody and welcome back to Planetarium U. This is going to be our news roundup video for the 38th week of 2022. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time, and we're going to just take a look at what's going on in the world of space, looking at a few exciting events that are getting ready to happen in the next few days. The first up is a potential launch tonight from Florida. This is with SpaceX. They're going to be launching another bunch of Starlink internet satellites into low Earth orbit. There are 54 satellites you can see here on the SpaceX website. And this information is coming straight from the horse's mouth. It says SpaceX is targeting Tuesday, September 13th, right here, for a Falcon 9 launch of 54 satellites to low Earth orbit from the Space Launch Complex at Cape Canaveral. That's in Florida. Now, hopefully the weather will cooperate and there won't be any technical issues and we'll be able to see this launch. If you go to the SpaceX website, to this very site you see here, spacex.com/launches/SI4-34, you'll be able to watch the live video feed. When you go to the SpaceX site, this will probably come up right on the splash page, right at the opening part. So you'll be able to click there and watch the live feed of this rocket launch. And of course, if you are in Florida, you may be able to travel over and see it yourself. It is pretty cool to watch these big rockets go up. Okay, in other news, speaking of big rockets, looking back over to NASA, Artemis I, as you know, still has not launched. But that's okay because this is a new rocket system made up of a lot of old parts, some new tech and some old tech coming together for what's a pretty interesting launch vehicle. And it's a hydrogen leak that's holding up the process. Now, these things are tricky because hydrogen is a very small molecular hydrogen. Okay, it's very tiny. A hydrogen atom is only one proton and one electron. Okay, it's as small as you get. And molecular hydrogen is two of those bonded together. Still very tiny. So that means that it doesn't take a very large leak at all for there to be a serious problem with fuel loss. And of course, hydrogen is very reactive, so you can't be too careful with it. The launch window, they're hoping that maybe they'll be able to launch by September 27th, with the potential backup opportunity of October 2nd. Okay, so that's assuming that the vehicle is up to snuff, that the leak gets fixed, and it looks good. Okay, so Artemis I may launch late this month or early next month. It's important to be patient. I know it's exciting, going back to the moon and all, but it's important to be patient and remember that this is a new rocket system and it has to work flawlessly or near flawlessly. Certainly, it can't blow up, okay? Just to speak very directly, if this thing fails catastrophically, that will be a tremendous backset for the space agency and for any hopes of going back to the moon. Related to that is the trouble that's going on with the CAPSTONE probe. But this is a very small satellite that's in orbit of the moon right now. And it's only about 50 pounds, I believe. It's a very small thing. But its role is very important. What it's going to do is establish whether or not the planned orbit for this space station that's called the Gateway, that hasn't been built yet, but eventually will be, to orbit the moon. It's a lunar space station. Well, we've got to make sure that the orbit that we plan for that space station is okay, that it's stable, and that it'll work out fine. So this smaller satellite, the CAPSTONE, was built, sent to the moon. And there was a some kind of a problem going on with the spacecraft. It's still not been determined exactly what happened, but you see here the second paragraph. Second paragraph. During or shortly after a planned trajectory correction maneuver on September 8th, CAPSTONE suffered an issue that caused the spacecraft to tumble beyond the capacity of the onboard reaction wheels to control and counter. Okay, so something went on with the guidance of the rocket. Not sure, or with the spacecraft. Not exactly sure what happened, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. For now, though, the spacecraft is still in safe mode, and it is going to be recoverable, and it looks like everything is going to be fine, and because we're still getting data back from the spacecraft. So it's still operational. There's just been a fairly significant hiccup, but I'm sure the teams will be able to figure out what happened and set it to rights. But again, better something go on with the CAPSTONE, the 55-pound or 50-pound CAPSTONE, than when you're up there trying to build a space station and you realize that your orbit is not right. So this is why we do these things. This is part of the process. All right. So that's a brief overview of what's going on immediately. Let's take a look at our current night sky. Let's pop over to Stellarium now. And here we go. This is the night sky set to 9 o'clock. So we're looking at 9 o'clock local time, wherever you happen to be, so long as you're in the northern hemisphere of the Earth. About 9 o'clock, your latitude will determine this to some degree, but it should be generally what you'll see. Now, when you look to the south, I'll tell you, first of all, let's look to the west, because that's the direction that you can most easily orient yourself to in the evening, because the sun sets in the west. Okay, so all you have to do to find the west is go outside when the sun is going down, pay attention to that direction, and you'll know which way is west. So when you look to the west this evening, there's not a tremendous amount of very descriptive constellations, but you will see a bright star that's almost due west. This is the star Arcturus, which is the brightest star in Boötes, the herdsman. You can see there's a kite shape here. This is the constellation of Boötes. Now, the easy way to find Arcturus is to look slightly, again, if you're looking west, look slightly toward your right. Turn to the right just a little bit and look there. What do you see? What is this guy? Does that look familiar? That's right. That's the Big Dipper, okay, which is part of the Big Bear constellation, Ursa Major. But the asterism is the Big Dipper, this part, which is the bowl, okay, and the crooked handle. Follow the arc of the handle to Arcturus, arc to Arcturus. And likewise, you can arc back into the handle, okay? If you look just a little bit then further to your right, if you're looking west, and turn around on up toward the north, if you're looking at the Big Dipper, look at the front two stars of the Big Dipper's bowl. These are called the pointer stars, because if you go from the bottom of the bowl to the top and then just keep going, they point to Polaris. The pointer stars point to Polaris. And what is Polaris? It's the northern star, the North Star, okay? So let's go ahead and turn to the north now. The North Star is not special because of its brightness. You can look around here and see other stars that are similar brightness, but it's special because of its position. That's right. The North Pole of the Earth points to that star. And that means that as the Earth rotates, as it spins on its axis, all the other stars appear to rise in the east, set in the west, or in this area, they will spin around in a circle. Okay? And I'll demonstrate that. Let's turn on the time. Let's move this down here. And let's just increase the time minute to minute. And let's go up to 21:30, which would be 9:30 p.m. See? As the time goes forward, do you see the rotational movement? Let's go on to 10 o'clock. See that? Now we're at 10 o'clock, 10 p.m., 2200 hours. All right, you see how the other stars sort of in this area in the north, they whirled around Polaris? But Polaris roughly stood still. That's because the north pole of the Earth points to that star. And of course, it's also the tip of the handle of the Little Dipper, which is an asterism that makes up most of the constellation of the Little Bear, Ursa Minor. We can turn on our artwork here and you can see them there. Now these bears have long tails, which is a little unusual. But, you know, as with many things with the constellations, it's left up to your imagination. All right, let's get the artwork back off. And let's look now toward the east. Toward the east. Let's see, right about there, sort of east-northeast. Right above the eastern sky, again, the east will be behind you if you're looking to the west. You'll see this big square. This is the Great Square of Pegasus. Pegasus being the flying horse, which is part of the Andromeda myth, which can be seen just to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left of the winged horse. The Andromeda Galaxy will be fairly faint, but you can see it here. That is a completely separate galaxy to our own, about 2 million light years away. So when you're looking out there and you see the Andromeda Galaxy, you're seeing light that is over 2 million years old. It's pretty crazy. This W shape is Andromeda's mother, Cassiopeia, the queen. And it's fairly obvious in the night sky. You may notice it when you're looking at the dippers, too. At about 10 p.m., you may see the moonlight from the moon coming up on the horizon. And relatively high above the eastern horizon will be a bright star-like object, and that will be the planet Jupiter. Now, if you look at Jupiter with binoculars, and you can hold them real steady, or if you have a tripod you can use, you may see up to 4 of the largest moons of Jupiter. They look like tiny little stars lined up in a straight line across from the planet. It's pretty neat to do. And those are called the Galilean moons. Jupiter has over 60 moons, but we can see 4 with binoculars, and each one of them is the size of a planet. We call them the Galilean moons because they were discovered by Galileo Galilei. In fact, watching the motion of those moons is what allowed Galileo to realize that Copernicus was right, that the sun was actually the center of the solar system, and that the Earth and all the other planets go around it, rather than the Earth being in the middle and everything in the entire universe revolving around us. All right, as we continue looking toward the south now, swirl on around here. Let's go back just a little. There we go. You'll see another bright star-like object in the south-southeast. That'll be the planet Saturn. Now, Saturn, of course, is famous for its rings. Unless you have giant binoculars or a telescope, you won't see Saturn's rings. With normal binoculars, you may notice that it's sort of oblong-looking, or that it looks kind of like it has ears. And those will be the rings, but you really won't be able to see the separation of the rings from the planet unless you have huge binoculars or a telescope. Now, you might be able to see the largest moon of Saturn, which is called Titan, with binoculars if you know where to look and you're patient and you look very carefully. You may see that with binoculars. You can look on the internet and find the relative position of these moons to the planets, to the larger planets. Sky and Telescope is a good resource for that, and there are others. Just go to your favorite search engine and search for how to find the moons of Jupiter or Saturn, and you'll be able to find that pretty easily. Okay. Also, in our southern sky, you find our familiar teapot shape that we've talked about several times. That is still up, although it is headed toward, by 10 o'clock, it is past the meridian and it's begun to set, but it's still high enough in the sky you'll see it. This is, of course, Sagittarius, and the teapot is the teapot asterism. Below that, you may see the curl of stars that represents the southern crown. Okay? And looking on back toward the west, you'll see Scorpius has just about set. It'll probably be largely lost in the fog by 10 p.m., although at 9 p.m. you should still be able to see it. It is that fishhook shape in the south that is just to the right of the teapot. And then back where we started to the west with our friend Boötes, which is still up, and Arcturus, which will be quite low on the horizon at about 10 o'clock. One more direction I should mention, if we look straight up above Boötes, you may see a keystone shape. That is the main body of Hercules. And our best friend, right above us, high in the sky, is the Summer Triangle. Altair, Deneb, and Vega. In the constellations Aquila the Eagle, Cygnus the Swan, and Lyra the Harp. And Biggie, the Great Pyrenees, is here. You might hear him breathing. He's come to say hi. Say hi, Biggie. Yeah, he wanted to know what I'm back here doing talking to myself. All right, Biggie, we're doing a video for YouTube. Say hi. Yeah. There was a fighter jet that went over earlier, and Biggie is a little bit scared. He doesn't like thunder. He doesn't like jets. We love you, Big. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the news for this week. If anything else comes up, I'll be sure to let you know. Don't forget, tonight there may be a SpaceX launch. It's planned. Everything looks good so far. Go to SpaceX website. You can watch it live. And we'll be keeping an eye on what's going on with CAPSTONE and Artemis and anything else and everything else space. So for that, Biggie and I are gonna let you go. I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to be safe out there. Keep looking up, and never forget to love and be loved. Bye-bye now.